Welcome to my channel.
And this is English Podcast Station.
All right, so today we're diving into something I think we've all been through.
Yeah.
Being late.
Oh, yeah.
We're checking out an episode from this cool English learning podcast called I'm Sorry.
Okay.
It's a conversation podcast.
Uh-huh.
This is episode 5.
All right.
And it's all about how to apologize like a pro when you're running behind schedule.
It happens.
It does happen to the best of us.
It really does.
And this podcast, what I think is cool about it is it doesn't just give you like a list of phrases.
Yeah.
It actually breaks down why apologizing, especially in like a professional setting, is so important.
It's really true. And I think what's interesting about that is that it shows respect for the other person's time, right?
Yes.
If you're late and you don't apologize, it's like you don't really care that much.
Have you ever been like waiting for someone and they just show up late? No explanation, no nothing. Yeah, like come on.
It doesn't feel good, does it?
Not a good look.
Yeah, you don't want to be that person.
Yeah, and a sincere apology, whether it's to like your boss or a coworker or even a friend, it just shows that you value that relationship.
Exactly.
Value their time.
It's really important.
So this podcast starts off with like the basics.
Okay.
Simple phrases like, I'm sorry I'm late, or I apologize for being late.
The classic apologies.
Yeah, sometimes that's honestly all you need.
Yeah.
But then it gets into these common excuses people use.
Oh, the excuses.
And some of these are so relatable.
I know. I'm sure we've all used them at some point.
Yeah, they cover like all the classics: traffic.
Oh, yeah. Public transportation delays.
Oversleeping.
The classic oversleeping.
Oh, and losing track of time.
My favorite.
That one's definitely gotten me in trouble a few times.
Me too. But what's interesting is that the podcast really emphasizes honesty.
Yeah.
Like they say, it's better to just be upfront about why you're late rather than making up some elaborate excuse.
Totally, because sometimes like a little white lie might seem tempting.
Oh, yeah. It's so easy to just come up with something on the spot.
But getting caught in a lie is way worse.
It is. It can really damage your credibility.
So just own up to it, right? Be honest.
Right. And even with those common excuses, there's specific vocabulary that can make your apology stronger.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah, they introduce phrases like traffic jam instead of just traffic, or running behind schedule.
I like that.
Yeah, and slept through my alarm.
Classic.
These are great for English language learners.
Yeah.
Because it helps them sound more natural and fluent.
Now, the part where this podcast really gets fun is the role-playing scenario.
Oh, yeah. I love those.
They've got different situations like being late for a meeting with your boss,
Oh, that's a stressful one.
or late for coffee with a friend,
A little less stressful.
or even late for class.
Oh, I remember those days.
It's so cool because you get to hear how different apologies play out in different contexts.
And what's great is that they don't just give you one right way to apologize.
Yeah.
They show a few different approaches and explain why they might be effective in different situations.
It's like we're getting a master class in the art of apologizing.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this podcast so valuable.
So, for example, in one scenario, someone's late for a meeting with their boss because of a traffic accident.
Oh, no.
But instead of just saying, sorry, traffic,
Right.
they actually give more detail and say something like, I'm so sorry, there was a major accident on the highway and I got stuck.
Uh-huh.
I should have left earlier to account for unexpected delays.
That's a much better approach.
Right.
It shows that you're taking responsibility and thinking about how to avoid the situation in the future.
And it just sounds more genuine,
It does.
like you actually care.
Exactly.
But then in another scenario, the person is late because they just lost track of time.
Ah, the classic.
And in that case, they just keep it simple.
Okay.
They're like, I'm so sorry I'm late. I completely lost track of time this morning.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, no need to overcomplicate things.
Right. Just acknowledge the mistake and move on.
Exactly. It shows you understand you messed up and you're taking responsibility without trying to deflect blame.
That's really important.
So how do they handle the scenario where someone's late because of a personal issue?
Oh, like a sick child or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's tricky because you want to be honest, but you don't want to overshare.
Right.
So how do they approach that?
Well, I like how they keep it brief and professional.
Okay.
Instead of launching into a whole long story, they simply say something like, "My apologies for being late. My child had a fever this morning, and I had to take them to the doctor."
I see.
It acknowledges the reason for the delay without getting too personal.
That's a good balance.
Right, because it's important to maintain those boundaries, especially in a work environment.
Absolutely. But now let's switch gears a bit and talk about being late for something a little less formal, like coffee with a friend.
Okay, so this is where things get more relaxed, right?
Yeah, the stakes aren't as high.
The podcast gives this example where someone says, "Hey, so sorry I'm late, got caught up in a work call and totally lost track of time."
That's relatable.
Super relatable, right? It's casual and friendly, but it still acknowledges the delay.
Yeah, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
Even though it's a casual setting, you still want to show your friend that you respect their time.
It's all about being considerate.
Exactly.
Now, they also have a scenario where someone's late for class with a teacher.
Oh, that brings back memories.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that one.
So what's their advice for that situation?
They emphasize being respectful and concise. Like one example they give is, "Good morning, Professor. I'm sorry I'm late. I missed my bus this morning."
Simple and to the point.
No long explanations needed, just a simple apology. And the reason...
It gets the message across while acknowledging the teacher's authority.
Exactly. And I've noticed how they weave in specific vocabulary for each scenario.
Oh, yeah?
It's like you're learning English without even realizing you're studying.
That's a great way to learn.
But what about those times when a simple, "I'm sorry I'm late," just doesn't seem to cut it?
Yeah, like when you're really late.
Like really late.
That's when you need to step up your apology game.
So what do they suggest in those situations?
Well, that's where the podcast brings in some more advanced phrases, and this is where things get interesting. So they suggest things like, "I sincerely apologize for keeping you waiting." You know, it adds a touch more formality.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, and it shows that you really mean it.
It's like you're not just throwing out a casual sorry.
Exactly. It's for those times when you really messed up.
And they also mention saying, "Thank you for your patience."
Yes, that's a good one too.
It's like you're acknowledging that the other person has been understanding.
It shifts the focus from yourself to the person who's been waiting.
You're recognizing their flexibility.
Exactly. And it shows appreciation, which can go a long way.
Then there's this phrase, "I feel terrible about this, but I'm running behind schedule."
Oh, I like that one. It kind of adds a bit of empathy.
Yeah, you're not just a robot. You're a human who feels bad about being late.
It humanizes the situation.
One thing that really stood out to me in this podcast was their discussion of cultural differences.
Oh, yeah. That's so important when it comes to punctuality.
It's something we often forget about, but different cultures have different norms.
Totally. What might be considered late in one culture might be perfectly acceptable in another.
Exactly.
They highlighted how in some cultures like the US or Germany,
Right.
punctuality is like super important.
Yeah, time is money.
But in other cultures, like parts of Latin America or the Middle East, there's a more relaxed approach to time.
Yeah, it's more about the connection and the relationship.
So being aware of these differences can really help avoid misunderstandings.
Especially if you're working with people from different cultures.
It's like having a cheat sheet for social interactions.
I like that analogy.
Now, the podcast wrapped up with a listener Q&A, and one question really got me thinking.
Someone asked, "What's the best way to apologize when you're late because it's something you can't control, like a flight delay?"
The dreaded flight delay.
It happens to the best of us.
So what did they say?
They said the key is to communicate early and often.
Makes sense.
As soon as you realize you're going to be late, let the person know
Yet don't leave them hanging.
and keep them updated.
Right, because the worst thing is not knowing what's going on.
So they suggest saying something like, "I'm so sorry, but my flight has been delayed. I'll keep you updated on my estimated arrival time."
I see, so you're acknowledging the situation.
You're taking ownership, even though it's not your fault.
And you're keeping them in the loop.
Exactly. It shows you respect their time, even when things are out of your control.
Now, what about when you're on the receiving end of an apology?
That's a good point.
How should you respond?
Like, what's the best way to react when someone apologizes to you for being late?
Yeah, because a gracious response is just as important as a sincere apology.
It can really smooth things over.
So what tips did the podcast give?
They recommend keeping it simple and understanding.
Oh, cool.
Like saying, no worries, it happens to the best of us.
Yeah,
Or thanks for letting me know.
those are good ones.
You're basically saying, hey, I get it. It's all good.
But what about those situations where someone's constantly late?
Oh, yeah, that can be frustrating.
Even after they've apologized and promised to do better.
It's like, come on, man.
So how do you deal with that?
Well, the podcast suggests addressing the issue directly,
Okay,
but privately and respectfully.
that's important.
You don't want to embarrass them.
No, definitely not.
And they recommend using I statements.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
So instead of saying you're always late and it's disrespectful, which can sound accusatory, you could say something like, I feel frustrated when I'm left waiting, especially when we have limited time,
I see. So you're focusing on how their actions are affecting you.
without blaming them.
It's more about the impact.
Exactly. It opens up a dialogue for finding a solution together.
That's a much better approach.
So we've covered a lot about verbal apologies, but what about nonverbal communication?
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other layer.
It's not just what you say, but how you say it.
Body language can speak volumes.
Imagine someone mumbling, sorry I'm late, while avoiding eye contact.
Yeah, and slouching.
It's like they don't even mean it.
It sends the wrong message.
So how do we make sure our nonverbals match our words?
I think it comes down to being present and engaged.
Okay.
Make eye contact, stand or sit up straight, and speak clearly.
And with a genuine tone of voice.
Exactly. Those little things can make a big difference.
So to wrap things up, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about taking action.
Ah, yes. Actions speak louder than words.
It's great to apologize,
Yeah.
but how do we actually break the cycle of lateness?
Right. How do we become more punctual?
What are some practical tips for our listeners?
Well, first we need to identify our personal time traps.
Oh, those sneaky little things that throw us off schedule,
Exactly, like underestimating travel time.
or getting distracted by social media.
Or procrastinating because you think you have more time than you actually do.
Once we know what our time traps are, we can start developing strategies to overcome them.
Exactly. It's all about being proactive.
All right, so we're back, and we've talked a lot about how to apologize when we're running late.
We've covered some great tips from that I'm Sorry podcast.
But now it's time to move beyond just saying sorry.
Yeah. Let's talk about how to actually conquer those time management challenges.
Let's get tactical.
All right, so where do we even begin?
I'm all ears.
Well, the first step is a little self-reflection. We
Right.
got to figure out what our personal time traps are.
You mean like those things that always seem to make us late?
Exactly, those sneaky little habits that throw us off schedule.
So like for me, it's totally underestimating travel time.
Uh-huh, I know what you mean.
I always think I can get places faster than I actually can.
That's a common one.
What about you? What are some of your time traps?
Well, I tend to get distracted easily,
Oh yeah.
especially by those notifications on my phone.
Ugh, the phone. A classic time trap.
It's a struggle, but I'm working on it.
So once we know our time traps, what's next?
Then we can start coming up with strategies to outsmart them.
Okay, give us the secret weapons.
All right, one highly effective weapon is the buffer zone.
The buffer zone. Tell me more.
So let's say your commute usually takes 30 minutes.
Okay.
Add an extra 15 minutes to that.
Okay. So give yourself 45 minutes.
Exactly that way, if there's traffic or you get a last minute phone call,
It won't totally throw off your schedule.
you got that cushion.
I like that it's like giving yourself permission to breathe.
Exactly. No more rushing around, feeling stressed.
No more white knuckles on the steering wheel.
Another tactic is to break down big tasks into smaller ones,
Yeah.
instead of looking at a giant to-do list and feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, that can be paralyzing.
Focus on one thing at a time.
So break it down into bite-sized pieces.
Exactly.
Makes it feel more manageable.
And it helps you stay on track.
And speaking of tools and strategies,
Oh, yeah.
don't forget about technology.
Technology can be a lifesaver.
Seriously, those calendar apps.
Yes, set reminders, schedule everything.
It's like having a personal assistant.
There are also some great time tracking apps.
Oh, those are interesting.
Yeah, they can help you see where your time's actually going.
So you can identify those sneaky time sucks.
Exactly.
But I think it's important to remember,
What's that?
becoming more punctual. It's a journey.
It's not a destination.
We're not going to be perfect overnight.
Right. It takes time and effort to build new habits.
And there will be slip-ups along the way.
Absolutely. The key is to be kind to ourselves.
Yeah, don't beat yourself up if you mess up.
Learn from those mistakes and keep trying.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yes.
I want to leave everyone with one final thought.
Okay, I'm listening.
I think this whole conversation about being late, it goes beyond just apologizing.
I agree.
It's about respecting other people's time,
Absolutely.
but it's also about respecting our own time.
That's a great
When we're always rushing and running behind,
Yeah.
it can mean we're not valuing our own time and commitments.
We're saying our time isn't important.
But when we learn to be more punctual,
Yes.
we're saying, hey, my time matters.
It's a form of self-care.
Exactly. So as we end this deep dive, I encourage you all,
Yes.
think about your relationship with time.
How can you honor it?
What steps can you take?
To be more punctual.
And to truly value your own time and commitments.
It's a journey worth taking.
And remember that I'm Sorry podcast
Especially episode 5.
is a fantastic resource.
It's full of helpful tips and real-life examples.
So if you want to dive even deeper,
Give it a listen.
thanks for joining us on this deep dive
We hope you learned something new
and that you're feeling inspired.
to take control of your schedule.
And your life.
Until next time,
Keep learning.
and keep exploring.